Hey Janine, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing all right. Thanks for hopping on today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. It's fun.
That's my pleasure. Absolutely. So Jeanine Bartel is an actress that I met in I think 2004 at a place called Actors Alliance. We had a couple of scenes together. I remember so scene partners a couple of times, and then when we started a film company that we had called Feenix Films, I asked Janine to be involved, and she was in, I think, almost every project we did for the most part, except for maybe one or two. And
All the
then,
ones I know about.
and then, but you have I was looking up your credits on IMDb, and you obviously are working a lot. You do a lot of stuff. You do a lot of roles on things. You do like larger movies, smaller movies, more well-known shows, less known shows. So, and then I think you were teaching too, weren't you?
I still am. Yeah,
Oh,
I
you
teach a
still are?
screenwriting class. Yeah. I love it. I actually hadn't, I was teaching at a studio for a long time
Yeah.
and then the studio shut down. And it was one of those things where I never considered myself a teacher. And I had done a play reading with someone and they're like, hey, can you come in and teach this kids camp? And I was like, as long as you don't call me a teacher, I'll come lead the thing,
Yeah, yeah.
and because I didn't want to be a fraud. And then one of the teachers left for reasons we won't discuss, and they were like, hey, can you jump in? As they always are. Can you jump in and teach this cool reading class? And I was like, you know what, that I feel comfortable, as long as, again, you just market me as somebody that's in the industry sharing their experience,
Hmm.
whatever. And I did that for like 6 months and the students kept asking me to come back. And so then after like a year and a half, I'm like, I think I'm a teacher. And I really love it. It's a different thing that you don't realize after I've been doing this for 23 years. When you've been doing it that long, you do amass a skill set, and then to get to share it with people and see how they adapt and you know take it in. It's a gift to kind of share it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's, I find it interesting when I know we were kind of mentoring somebody for a little while who was just getting his foot wet, my wife and I, and then he started asking me like directing questions and some things like that, and I was like, wow, I actually have information I'm able to impart. Now that's just my experience. His experience is going to be different, which I think is important. Realize you're going to have your own experience and your own things that come to you. But so do you, I mean, I this is always a tough question. Do you like teaching more than acting, or is it just is it different?
No, I mean, I think I love watching someone find their voice. That's really the part of teaching that I love, is that
Hmm.
giving someone else the thing that I love about acting. But nothing for me as fills me up the way acting does.
Yeah.
Although I will say I coach privately now, and I teach a scene study where the students have been with me for a couple of semesters now, and they keep coming back, and watching them grow and really start to hone their skills and be present and really we had a beautiful class the other night, which is everybody's just really connecting and talking to each other. And it's like when you get to watch their growth, that's
Hmm.
really special. I think as an actor, so much of your time is spent not acting. you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, I love performing. That's never going to change. I love being on stage. I love working on film, and I love how they're different. I love it,
Hmm.
the spontaneity of film, and then the intimacy. I mean, I'm sorry, the spontaneity of stage, and then the intimacy of film, and then how you
Hmm.
find sort of that in each of the other. Like there's a spontaneity in film, but it's more nuanced, and
Yeah.
and then stage, it's just there's a rush. You got a rush in your body when you're on stage.
Hmm.
I like storytelling. I think that's the part of it that that's why I do it, and I like that we get to have an impact on people by the work we do. So I
Yeah.
get to do that in both teaching and acting. So I don't know. I mean, I don't. It's hard because I've been an actor way longer than I've been a teacher, and I think when you really embody a character and you get out of your head and you live through someone else's experience, there's nothing like that.
Hmm. No, I agree. I agree with you. It's definitely unique, and it's unique. Each medium is unique, film, TV. Sometimes with TV, your character is simply to move the plot along. That's it. So I know I used to struggle when I would go for auditions, because you've done a lot of Law and Order, right?
And very good to me.
Yeah, and I always, anytime I auditioned, at some point in time, they stopped asking me to audition, and I was thrilled because I just could not. They didn't say like don't audition anymore. They just stopped, calling the manager I had. But I struggled with the fact that I was trying. To me, this was like a character, and I wanted to bring them to life. And for them, you're moving the story along. And I think for me, I struggled with that a little bit in not realizing, I don't know. It's hard to describe it. But do you find that when you're doing those shows that you're trying to make a character, but at the same time your character's purpose may just be to get the story from this to this, and it's not about your character?
I think you always have to be aware that with television, like you're coming into a mechanism that's a moving machine, right? Like
Hmm.
there's already these moving parts, and you come in and you are, whether you're a guest or a co-star, it's like you are a guest on that show, right? But I do think it changes. Like if you're a co-star and you're coming in, you have one line, that is like you don't try to make a spectacle of it. You do the thing that moves the story, right? Like you just serve the purpose, right?
Hmm.
So you can understand that about that role, but there are some small roles that are key. And I, as I coach actors more and more, it's like, how do you carve out something that's meaningful, but just understand what the writer needs from you? What do they need you to do in that story? I've been very fortunate on a lot of the episodes. I mean, I played smaller roles when I first started on Law and Orders and stuff, but I've also been fortunate to do some guest star roles and had 4 scenes, 7 scenes, and then I definitely have an arc and a beginning, middle, and end, and going through a journey. And some of my most favorite experiences of really living through a character that's going through something really trying have been on those shows. um,
Hmm.
I always say that my niche is like an unhinged person that's surviving through something, and whether or not they do it well. you know I, I don't like to judge my characters, but I play a lot of people that are unbalanced, and whether that's, you don't want to call, I wouldn't call them crazy, but from the outside world they might be considered off, or dealing with substances, or not mentally well, or their family is falling apart, and so they are coming off as unhinged.
Hmm.
I love those characters because they're usually the ones that are trying to survive.
Now, why do you think you get? Because whenever I casted you in something, you were not an unhinged character. You were always grounded. Um, for Nikki Newark, you were this like angelic character that comes in to help him kind of find a brighter way to live. The basement was a different story, but you weren't like, you were
Not
intense.
just in the basement. For
Yeah.
real.
12 hours in a dusty basement. That basement doesn't even look like that anymore. And then, clandestine, you played a school teacher. So, and once again, you had your fears, right, that you were working with and trying to overcome. Um, so why do you think some of these other shows, why do you think they cast you as kind of, because I remember when we first met, we were talking and I said, what do you usually get? Or you told, I don't remember how it happened. We're going back a long time ago, but basically we were talking, it was like 18 years ago. And you were like, well, I usually get kind of the quirky, unhinged best friend. And
Yeah.
I was like, why do you get the quirky, unhinged best friend? I don't understand that. You're like, I don't know. That's just what I get. So I go for it. Why
Yeah.
do you think you get those roles, though? What do you think? Because I don't see you that way. That's why I'm curious about it.
I mean, and you know what? It's interesting because I think that there are certain offices and certain people that see me in one way. I get
Uh-huh.
I get the opposite extreme too. I get that very waspy Upper East Side mom that's very refined, but also usually somewhat unhinged. Like they're trying to hold it together so they seem like they're perfect.
Mhm.
I don't. I mean, I'm a quirky human, so there's got to be something into that. Like I like to make my interpretation of a character is, I hope, unique, and I hope it's bringing I always think you should bring you to the character, right? And so I'm a bit quirky, and I think that can't help but come through. um
Mhm.
and I think, I don't know, maybe it's because I don't know. This is a vulnerable sharing, but maybe, like, I've had a lot of trauma in my life, and lived through it, and then because of that, a lot of people share those heavy experiences with me, and so
Mhm.
I think it's a dedication to, like, trying to play them authentically, and, like,
Yeah.
represent people that are often looked at in a very negative way, but it's really because they're just trying to survive, and you know they might be an alcoholic, or they might be a battered woman. I played a lot of battered women. But they didn't choose that circumstance. It's like,
Hmm.
what got them there? And then how do they get through that? um, I think for a long time I was playing, quirky best friends. I was playing a lot of ditzy girls. It's funny. I'm a little blonde again somehow, summer, I guess. But I was very blonde for a very long time, and I played a lot of ditzy, bubbly, whatever. And I got very frustrated. I
Mm.
felt like I wanted to stretch. I wanted to play raw, gritty roles. And I remember sitting in a therapy session. I'm like, I just want to wear tank tops and motorcycle boots and shredded jeans. And my therapist was like, well, why don't you? And I was like, that's a very good point. Like, I guess I could just do that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like a chicken and an egg, right? Like, how do you show up to an audition, right? Like, because people always saw me as done and finished and polished, I would show
Yeah.
up done and finished and polished. And I think that's what they thought I was. And I
Mm.
was like, what if I take the makeup off and I just am me? Then once I started showing up in that way and caring way more about the work, than what the outside things were, as we're so young and insecure when we get here, and we're like trying to figure out what the answer is and what you're supposed to look like and what you're
Hmm.
supposed to do and all those shoulds. And
Yeah.
really it's just about the work. I remember years ago, I was having one of those days where I'm like, I must have tried on everything in my closet. I was, I just couldn't get it together. And I had an audition for a pilot, and I had all these clothes in my bed. I'm like, I'm going to be late. I'm going to be late if I don't just put something on. And I'm like, what do I need to be today? I'm like, I need to be a mother who's protecting her child. I'm like, I am a mother. I protect my child every day. I put on a maroon pair of pants, a maroon shirt. I put my hair in a bun, and I was like, fuck it. And can we say that here?
Yeah. Sure.
And I went and I booked it. And it was such an awareness of like, none of that other stuff matters. I mean, like, yeah, of course, sometimes, especially for television, we kind of see things in archetypes and things. And like, you want that very posh woman or something, you're going to put a fancy dress on or something like that. We play into the worlds we're living in. But it was such a grace to like kind of accept that, like, I can just show up and ground myself. I gotta tell you, wearing boots like totally changed my work. Like, it grounded me in the ground in a different way that I didn't feel so flighty. I know that sounds silly, but I'm one of those people that I think shoes change your character. You put on something heavy, you're barefoot, you put on a pair of spike heels. It changes you. I
Yeah.
had to play I did a feature last year that's hopefully coming out very soon. I'm very excited about it. And what the producer said to me right before when I got cast was, this woman is an alcoholic and she drinks in every scene. And it's one of the hardest things to do authentically on camera. And
Mm.
are you gonna be able to do it? And one of the things I did was, the costume designer she was supposed to be like this starlet, and she gave me these crazy high heels that I could barely walk in. And I was like, I can barely walk. That's a really great place to
Mm.
start someone who drinks.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my character.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's always the trick with drinking, is not to play drunk. You're
Yeah.
trying to not be drunk. So
Yeah.
that's always the trick. But when you can do, I've always been a big believer in that too, in that your costume, uniform, whatever, makes, just as soon as you put that stuff on, it's like you just, I don't know, you feel it, you start to feel like the walk. I'm always a big guy with the walk. What's the person's walk like? And once I figure out their walk, I'm pretty good, because the walk to me indicates their thought process psychologically, where they're at, what are they overcompensating for, do they have any injuries, and it all just starts to kind of come together for me. Um but obviously you walk on your feet, so shoes, as you're saying.
That experience is true. It's not just the shoes you put on, but it's like how you move through the world, right? Like,
Hmm.
are you tired? Are you labored? You know, are you exhausted? Are you strong? Are you on something that's got you like, on speed, or
Yeah.
um are you confused? It's literally like how you move through the world, right? And it's interesting because I feel like then you have to figure out a way to get all that into the space of an audition, so that you get to play the role and you get to really like do all that beautiful research to build this character. We've been lucky, we do a lot of independent film, and um one of the reasons why I love independent film is because it gives you a chance to expand and grow. And like, we've worked together many times, and it is, everyone sees you a different way. And then as you do those things and then you show them to other people, they're like, oh, I didn't really see you like that.
Mm.
Let's try that, and now I think people see me in way different ways than ever before, in that very like little box of the quirky little sidekick. I still love to do that. I mean, I would love to be on a sitcom, or any,
Right,
like,
right.
there's not a lot of them, I have very few. But that being said, if I had to pick a dream show, it would be like a raw, dark comedy where it's grounded in truth and human
Yeah.
behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, you always want to have something to chew on, I think. And that's the thing I think about, whenever I'm writing something, and I know you've been working on writing and your own films as well. So I always like to, as I'm writing, I'll sit there and think like, is this realistic? An acting teacher I had, who I consider my mentor, he asked me, I mentioned this prior on another podcast, but he asked me back in the 90s when I was taking classes with him, he goes, who's your favorite actor? And I said, Harrison Ford. He goes, wrong. And then I was like, I said, what's wrong with Harrison Ford? He goes, he's fine as an entertaining actor, but who's your favorite actor? And I was like, he's, well, what do you like about him? I said, well, he's realistic. I said, great. He goes, but is he entertaining? And I was like, well, not always, sometimes, but other times he seems kind of dry, he doesn't look like he's having fun. At least, this was circa 98, 99. And he came up with this phrase that I've used ever since called entertaining realism, that something can be realistic, but it has to be entertaining. Because if you were just to follow somebody in their day, any of us, most of us are going to probably put an audience to sleep. I'm going to walk upstairs.
Yeah, me, Dave.
Yeah, well, that'll be wake you up. But I just always thought that was interesting. And I find that like when I'm writing, I'm thinking, is this entertaining? Is this entertaining realism? If I'm acting, if I'm directing, is what this actor is doing, is there a purpose why we're dedicating this real estate to film? Like this moment, why do we need it in the script? What is it relaying? I mean, I'm a character development like lunatic. I love character development. But does this, do you need this moment, or is there another moment that does it better when I'm writing or directing or, even acting? So, so as you're delving into writing your own work, first off, how's it going? Because I hate writing. It drives me crazy. But are you enjoying it? Do you finding it more challenging than you thought? Do you have someone who helps you? Where are you at?
I mostly write short stories, and I'm trying to learn how to adapt them into scripts, which I am finding way more challenging than I thought.
Mm.
Because it's just a different way of storytelling. It's funny because it's a visual medium, right? As much as you are descriptive in a short story, you're so descriptive, and in a film, you have to paint the picture, but then it has to move. There's got to be action, right? So, that's been a little bit of a trap for me. I've tried writing with people in mind for a project that's dead in the water, because then you're trying to be like, let me give them a good scene and stuff. And I know people that do that. I work with one woman who does that beautifully, and make sure everyone gets a really wonderful Dana Marissa Schoenfeld. I've worked with her many times, and when she writes and she pulls together a cast and she makes sure everyone is really like, she assembles the people she wants, and then she makes sure she carves out a way to give each of them a storyline that really makes them shine. It's really beautiful. I have found, once again, because the stories that I want to tell are somebody going through something, that to me, the most important thing as a writer is what's going to make an audience want to keep watching. Mm-hmm. What is it about this character that they want to know or learn or see get through? And I think I'm better at dialogue than I am at story structure, because I've never studied it. But I just wrote a script, and I don't know, I love it. And maybe that's why I should never send it out, because I love it. But I'm sure it needs work and feedback, and I had a friend read it and try to help. And the important part for me, though, is as much as like it's a collaborative art, is also that like if you want to tell a story, that you tell your story and that you don't let other people try to shift the story you're telling, if you're in control, right? Like, it's one of the things about indie film, like, you get to tell your story. When, if you write a script and sell it, you're not always in control of what happens to it and how it's made, what becomes of it. But if the story that you want to tell is essential to you, then either you've got to make it or you've got to find someone you really trust to make it. So I don't know. This is a story that came to me one night driving in a pouring torrential downstorm. I was typing in the car, and it came out very quickly as a short story, and now I've been adapting it. And I would like to actually it to be the first film that I direct. Of course, I want to star in it too. So no, why not put it all on? But we were talking briefly, but like, now the hard part about filmmaking is then how do you raise the money to make it? How do you get it made?
Yeah.
So a lot of us now are being challenged because the industry has changed so much, and it is funny to me that, because people are always saying, like, there's so many television shows, how are you not on a television show? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't have an answer for you.
Yeah.
But I see it with so many of my talented friends, that just because there's a billion shows, it doesn't equate to everybody gets a series, and it doesn't equate to everybody's auditioning. And it's not the same. It's a different journey for everybody. And so the only way to guarantee that you work is to create your own.
Yeah.
Which you do all the time, and I'm grateful to be included. But it is, then you have to figure out how to get it made, and that's that's the tricky part of indie film. And we've all done film where we work 14, 16 hours, and maybe we get $100 and a meal, and we do it because we love it and we want to work. But then you've got to, you want to build a career too.
You do. I think that's always like, when we started doing our own work, I loved it because I was like, oh, I'm finally getting opportunities to do stuff I wanted to do and tell stories and work with people I wanted to work with. It was very exciting. And I'd be sitting there and I'd be thinking, like, I'd like to tell a story about this. Well, let me write it and let's go make it. And we'd shoot it, and then that's it. And then we, move on to something else. I think after Clandestine, though, the amount of time and energy that went into that, which has been worth it, because when I see, the platforms it's on and stuff like that, and the fact that it's making a decent impact. The other thing was, though, so much time and energy was put into it. It's difficult to do that when you are now, you have to pay your mortgage and your bills, and, you have to keep a full-time job until any type of filmmaking or acting pays you enough to leave that full-time job. So there's that challenge to it, in that you just don't, you want to dedicate the time that you can, but at the same time, if you're going to dedicate time, you want to make sure it's time that pays off in some way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I think it's partly like you either choose, like, right, like, it's a story you want to tell, it's something you want to work with, it's a character that you've never played and you really want to have that experience, or it's going to take your career somewhere, or it's financially lucrative. I mean, I think it has to hit one of those boxes,
Yeah. But, and then the thing, though, is passion. If it's a story that you are passionate about, you find a way. I despise catch-22s. I just hate them. Rock and hard place, catch-22, all that shit. So whenever I hear that, or someone's like, yeah, it's a catch-22, I'm like, no, it's not. We're not going to do that. We're going to find a way around a catch-22, because that's bullshit. It's a concept, and we're going to break that concept. And we were talking about it before we started recording. But you have your premium budget, and then you have your consolation budget, and then you have your, we're just gonna go and do it, and I think there's people that I know that I met over the years, who I haven't kept in touch with, and they didn't keep in touch with me, but where they they had a film, they had a script, and it was like, well, how much are you looking for? And it was always like, well, couldn't do it for less than $5 million. Well, this is your first movie, so maybe dial it down, is that realistic? Do you know anyone who's going to give you $5 million? If you do, then awesome. And I see people who get, there's a friend of mine who's been getting lots of film roles out in LA. And I'll hear about some of the challenges that go on with some of these films that have $8 million budgets, or 10 million or 12 million, and they have name actors, recognizable people in them. And the productions are like, a disaster. It's like, that's so disorganized. I can't believe that shit's going on, you know?
Scale, bigger
Um,
problems,
huh?
bigger scale, bigger problems, it's just,
Yeah, yeah. And but I think, when you're passionate about something like you are about your script, you find a way to do it. Even if it is just like we were saying, like you were saying, you put the camera up in the corner and you say, well, let's do it. And the nice thing is you can always go back and do it again later if it's a hit.
I
So,
actually did a pilot like that a few years ago. Somebody shot it. We shot it over Skype. I was in my kitchen, she was in hers. And
mhm,
then that teaser, they got funding, and then we ended up shooting it. And and it was still indie, but she did. She used that teaser to then earn more money to shoot it. And then there's the other side of it. Like right now, cell phones have pretty incredible cameras on them that you don't need. Yes, we all want to shoot at a certain level, right? But you really can tell a story. And if it's done well and simple, I just judged
mhm,
this Girl Improved Film Festival, and these girls were young women who some of them have made many films actually, which is pretty impressive, and some none. And when the storytelling was clear and specific, it didn't matter if they had one camera on a two shot, and then and then you would see how they were trying to grow. It's like, but you can tell a story really well if the story is is it clear? Do you have good actors? Do you have good sound? Can you see,
mhm.
like the essentials? You need the essentials, right? And then
Yeah.
like you said, you can either remake it, or you use that as proof of concept, or proof
Mhm.
you can do something, and then the next one is a little bigger, and the next one, you guys have done that, like each one's a little bigger.
Yeah.
um but you all have to start somewhere. Years ago, I co-developed a series with a bunch of women, and we made the first few on nothing, like no dollars. Like we all showed up, and we're like, hey, do you want to come play with us? And we made 4 episodes, and then somebody, a producing team, was like, we really need a credit as a producing team. Can we help you
Mm,
produce? And we'll give you this for this little money. And they helped us make a couple, and then we sold the concept.
mm,
And then we had a producer who produced the back at 8. And man, that was a learning journey. Like we had never
mm.
produced anything, any of us. We were actually 3 women on Law and Order who all studied with the same teacher, Bob Krakauer, and he had always encouraged us, do practice groups, meet weekly, get on tape, do your self tapes. This is before self tapes were self tapes, but like, put yourself on tape, get used to being in
Mhm.
front of the camera, work your skills. And we were 3 moms on this one episode of Rip from the Headlines. And
Gong gong.
and and we became really good friends, and we started meeting once a week. And after like a year and a half, I think it was, we were like, everybody's doing really amazing work. What and everybody in that group was working to some degree. Like everybody was at a good level, but like not
Yeah.
working consistently in the way we would like to. And we also all happened to be moms, and we
Mm.
would spend half of our time working on our craft, and then half the time judging each other's parenting skills. And so we decided to and we created a show called Mother Judger.
Mm.
And it was a learning, it was a web series. So, like these little tidbits. We had found this wonderful playwright, and brought him in, and we did some improv, and then he wrote the scripts and then sent them back to us, and we, personalized them a little bit and sent them back. And um yeah, it was a hard experience, but it was a great experience. We learned a lot, and then none of us wanted to do it again for a long time. and then but because it is really hard, and it's hard. It's interesting. You can make things on a very low budget and do them and have complete control over them, and they
Mhm.
might not look as sharp and shiny, but when you're having fun doing it and it's something quality, sometimes that experience can be even better than the thing that looks all shiny at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. And it's, having say of your vision of what you want to do. I've never been in the position of someone coming in and telling me that they want to edit the movie a certain way. And I don't think I would deal with that well, to be honest with you. I know when we were trying to get distribution for Clandestine before it got it, we had reached out to like everybody, the Weinstein Company. Um, and then I was reading stuff because they delayed. They didn't say no right away, which I was initially happy about. And then I started getting really nervous because we had met Javi Kate McGrath had snuck us in. Well, not snuck us. Her boss didn't want to go to his French Legionnaire award ceremony because he had no interest in going. And he said, "Well, Kate, why don't you take your friends, your filmmaking friends?" So we met with them. I introduced myself. He can give a shit. I gave him our business card, and I thought he was going to rip it up and throw it in my face. But he was surprisingly polite, not engaged, but polite. And but I didn't like him. Just from the dealing with him, I was like, you feel energy from people sometimes, and the energy was not, wasn't pleasant. I kind of at the time for my grad degree, I was working. My internship was with a day center for people who had schizophrenia. So I was dealing with high alert stuff for like 6, 7, 8 hours of the day. And then we went in and we did this thing to meet Weinstein. And I just remember feeling like, well, maybe I'm just picking up a lot of stuff from the day job or whatever, a lot of negativity or whatnot. And then, but then when you fast forward like 3 years and the distributor is trying to, or this, what do you call him? Sales agent is trying to get the film picked up. I was just like, I started reading about how he would just go in and re-edit filmmakers' movies and not even tell them. And then they're like, "What are you doing to my movie?" It's like you're beating up their child almost. And I just was like, "Oh God, please don't accept the film." I just had my fingers crossed. I didn't want them to take the film. And they didn't accept it. And we could have always said no anyway, but that's a big temptation,
But it's interesting too, because I've been a part of films where I've shot them and then I go see them and I'm like, I don't remember that script. I certainly didn't act that script in that, and of course they move things and edit things, whatever, but sometimes they edit in such a way that you're like, that's not the story I thought I was telling. And sometimes it's not something that you would even want to be a part of. And so it's interesting because it's, when you do theater, it's like, what the play is, from start to finish, and you get up on stage and the director can do everything that they can to mold it and craft it, and then they hand it to you and it's yours and you get to play it out, and then when you do film, you're at the mercy of the director, the editors, everything. And sometimes it has nothing to do with your performance. Sometimes it's which take had the best lighting and which take wasn't there a dog barking or, and then sometimes it's like, oh, we thought this made more sense. And you're like, I don't like the way that makes me look or sound. And had the script been written that way, I don't know that I would have done it,
Yeah.
So, it is interesting to sort of, you realize you don't have a lot of control. Like I was talking to someone about TV stuff, it's like you do something and then you wait a month or sometimes 6 months or sometimes a year for it to come out, and you watch it with millions of people and you're like, I've never seen it. I don't know. Is it good? Did it make it? Did only a part of it make it? So, do I want to advertise it because it felt like a really great experience, but maybe it's not. I don't, we really don't know anything, and all you can do is, if you're lucky enough and have the experience of having a relationship with the editor and you're like, they keep in touch and, they kind of give you a heads up, like,
take them out to lunch every once in a while, send them some gifts. No, I know. I did, one of the first things I did was that there was that show, New York Undercover. You remember that back in the 90s? And I was supposed to be like a fashion show guest, which is ironic because I hate fashion. But so that was some true acting. And I remember I was in it, but I remember filming more. And then when it was on, I was like, it's like, I'm so glad I told everybody to watch this. I was on like 5 seconds and that was it, But that's also though, like the big killer of TV and film is time. It's festivals won't take a movie if it's too long. So then sometimes you compromise your story, and TV has to fit in those commercials and it only has, such and such that it's working with. And it gets tough, and sometimes your performance, I did a movie. The director, it was this film called Tenderness that Russell Crowe was in, and I got it right after my grandfather passed away in like 2006, And I felt like my grandfather had made this happen, I was going to be in a movie with Russell. No, I didn't have any scenes with him, but I was still in the movie. And the director had one of the thickest Australian accents I have ever heard. Like literally, I cannot understand anything the guy's saying. So I show up, I go, and the guy comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, Dave, hey, damn, so I'm gonna, see, we're gonna do this scene." He's, and then, and all right. And I was like, "What the fuck did he just say?" And I'm like looking at him, and I'm like, "Uh huh." And then he goes off, and I'm playing like a convenience store clerk guy. And at one point, like I'm sitting there, and I'm just kind of thinking about my lines and what gotta, and I just hear Dave, Dave, Dave. I'm like, and I look over, and I see him, and all the crew are staring at me. And I'm like, "Are you calling me?" He goes, "Yeah, Dave." He goes, "Are you saying Dave?" And I'm like, "Oh my God." And then he said shit. I don't know. I think they must have thought I was high because like he would say stuff and I'm like, I don't have any clue what the hell he just said to me. And they did like 12 different, I mean, it was like close-ups, mid shots, further. I mean, it was just like crazy, the amount of shit they did. So then I go and I see the movie. I'm blurry in the background and you just hear me say my lines and there's a fuzz and kind of reddish hair. Like that's all you could see. And I was like, "You son of a bitch." If that was either you or the editor. But I just remember thinking like, oh, what a waste of time. You shot all this stuff and then this is what you used in this brief little thing. But then I've had actors say that to me. Something that I did. I edited this actor's, he was doing a lot of expounding on his stuff and a lot of acting. But that's not what the role called for. And that was how it was written. And I remember after he saw it, he said to me, "I didn't like the takes you used." And I was like, "I didn't like what you did." So I had to use what I had to use for the scene. Scene wasn't about you, and that scene in Tenderness wasn't about me. It was about the female lead, but those are things you start to realize when you start directing.
That's what I'm saying. When you're on the other side, right? You get to see so much of like it's all about the story.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a bad decision too, though. Like what probably happened with the film you saw, they just made some bad choices for whatever the reason, and then you're looking at it like I don't even like the work that you're demonstrating.
Oh. I mean, how many times do you get through? I mean, listen, we've all been through films where you're like, "Oh God, I wish I had done different work," or you're further along in your journey and you see something from long ago and you're like, hopefully we grow. But yeah, and then there's times where you're like, the way it's cut. Like I was in a film that could have, I need to talk about things in a way, but they edited it to like every moment right before the sobbing. And so it just felt like such melodrama because and they wanted it to be festival ready. So they kept cutting it to make it under that time limit. And I was like, but if you don't leave the air and the space for them to feel and for them to get the news, take it in, breathe, and decide how to respond, and then be affected by it and then cry, as there was a lot of crying scenes in it, it doesn't have any impact. All you see is it's crying, and none of it really can hit you. And it was frustrating because I'm like, I know what's in the can has space and air and life that makes sense to get to that point. And you're like, I get why they cut it, but to me the story suffers because it's like the audience needs time to live through your experience with you. And if it's just all of the emotion, they don't have time. They don't know why you're in that space, but I remember working on Clandestine with you, and you taught me something because we were doing a scene and I did not like my performance and I was so mad. And you're like, "I have it." And I'm like, "No, you don't." And you're like, no, I do. I know I have it. And I'm like, "No, you don't. I don't like that take at all." And the experience was interesting because I think the actor I was working with, who's a wonderful actor, but found his rage as we went on. We did my coverage first. And I think that was part of it, was like, as someone, and that's hard too when you do coverage because you never know if someone's giving you everything they have. And then when the turnaround happens, you're like, "Oh, wait, if this is what I got, I would have played this very differently," and that's sometimes just that actor finding it as they go 100% in. And it's one of the reasons why I always try, no matter what side of the camera I'm on, to give it everything that I'm going to, because I want that other actor to have all of it to respond to. But I remember you saying to me, you're like, I have it. I wouldn't move on if I didn't. You have to trust me. And I was so resistant. And then I watched and I was like, oh yeah, you did. You got it. You know, like, you
Well,
know.
the funny thing is, I do remember that slightly differently,
Oh, really?
but yeah, it actually is one of my favorite scenes in the movie,
Okay.
is the scene between you and Coop. And I remember you were doing a really good job, but I knew you could do more. Um, and I remember you said to me, "Do you have it?" And I said, "I have it, but I don't like it. I think
Oh, I don't remember that.
I think you can go to a place that you're not going to yet." And then, but we're talking about something that happened almost 10 years ago. So,
Oh,
and then you said, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, let's go." Cause we had done a couple of takes, and then you went and you did it. And I just was like, that was it. That was it. And you nailed it. And I used that entire take for the whole move, for that whole scene. And then I literally took the other actor and I just dropped him in, and I let your whole thing just go. And wherever I felt I needed him to be, I put him in, but it was all one take. And then you came up to me and you said, "Do you have it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have it. Like, we got it."
Reading in the dark.
Where have you been?
I'm sorry I'm late. You don't have to wait up for me, Liv.
How many nights are you not going to be around when you say you will be?
Olivia, this is important.
I know it is, Coop, but your kid doesn't see you.
Yes, she does.
What is this?
It's a book. I'm supposed to read it.
Does it need to be downstairs? Because to a 4-year-old, this looks like a coloring book.
Okay, I'll hide it better.
No, you're going to stop bringing it home.
No, you won't talk to me that way. I'm not bringing anything home. That is my job.
I get it, Charlie. I know the story. A person is different when he becomes a cop than what he was before. But what do you want? What do you want to be like Agent McEnroe? You want to not have a wife to come home? Do you want to not have a little girl to come home to?
You don't get it, okay? This is the first time I feel like I'm doing something important in 7 goddamn years.
I know that.
You don't know that. Right, that's the whole point. Those people out there that I see every day, they could be us.
I get it, Charlie. You don't need to bring him in. You keep bringing him in and bringing him in.
It could be our kid.
No, they couldn't! You keep this shit out of my house.
And I don't have to do anything in the editing, and we didn't. And I just remember every time I see that scene, and you know what's fascinating is we remember that very differently. So who the hell knows who's right? So
Maybe it was the second half when I came up to the second half and said, like,
could be.
But it's interesting. What I remember leaving with that experience was sometimes, and I remember this happening on a Law and Order too, which of course, you don't have the same relationship necessarily unless you work with them a lot or you're regular, whatever. But the director that you can ask, like, you just do your job and pray.
Yeah.
But it's like that kind of thing where you have to trust that when they move on, they do have what they need because they have a different vision, right? I remember there was a take, and I swear the way it was set up, it looked like my head was right between Mariska Hargitay and the camera. And I'm like, are you sure you want my head here? Because I think like her face would be really beautiful to be seen. And that was one of my first guest stars. And I, of course, didn't say that, but I just was like, okay, I will do whatever you want. But it really is, you just have to trust, because you don't know what the director is seeing in their head. You don't know what the DP has. You don't really know the frame exactly. They might have be doing it over shoulder. They might have two cameras on you, and you know, this side is getting one aspect that they're going to use, and this side. So it really taught me to start just going, okay, I don't have control. When I'm an actor, I have to stay in my lane. And if I don't understand something, or if I think that there's a way to contribute to make it better, which can be a fine line. But it is building that trust to go, I'm going to give everything that I can. And then when they say that they have it, and sometimes it's time. I mean, I remember doing a comedy, and it was the opening scene, and it wasn't funny. And they're like, we got to move on. I'm like, we can't move on. It's not funny. It has to be funny. And I feel like that was, if I have to say that in all my years of acting, I feel like that might have been, I hope, my only diva moment. And I was like, no, it has to be funny. But
did they let you do it again?
I think we must have gotten one or two more takes, because it is funny in the film. And it was like a 48-hour film challenge. So you're like, you have no time. You know, you're like, we write the script tonight, we shoot it tomorrow, we edit it the next day, we go. But so you know, and sometimes you really do. You're like, whether it's money or time, it's like that's got to be it. And then as the actor, my least favorite word as a human is fine. It's fine. Like, no. Fine is not an acceptable word for me. Like, is it good? Is it what you want? Does it get the across? Like, fine to me is going, I gotta move on. And
there's
anyone who's gonna work with me, even if you don't say fine.
Well, there's a, no pun intended, fine line between a director, I feel, being overbearing, and then a director not doing anything. And that's, it's a director's, I always feel like it's the director's responsibility, and they can only do so much, but it's their responsibility to make the cast and crew feel confident that, like, listen, I'm going to get you and all of us through these seas, and we're going to get and land on the promised land, which is the final day of shooting, and then the movie will get made. That's the director's responsibility, and he has to do that through, I think, compassion, communication, and I don't mean to put all these together, but consideration, you know, the three C's. And with consideration, someone comes to you, an actor, and says something, you have to consider it. You have to think about it, even if it doesn't go with your vision, whatever that may be. And I can't even express the amount of times that someone came up to me with an idea, an actor, and I was like, well, we'll leave it for the last take. We'll do that on the last, let me get everything else, and then we will make the time, and we'll do that on the last take. And I'm saying in my head, there's no way we're using that. That is not going to work. It doesn't work with anything we're doing, but let's do it. Let's do it. And then we do it. And then it's time for editing several months later. And I'm like, son of a bitch, that was freaking perfect. And I just don't even, I kind of know now when someone comes up and they say something and I feel that, nope. I go, yep, probably going to be in the movie, even though I'm saying nope. So, you know, but you have to communicate. And you have to listen, and that's the director's job. You know, if an actor really feels like I can do better, I can do something different, okay, do it. Prove it to me that you can do it.
It's also like such a gift. Like I've been really fortunate to work with directors multiple times, often, and you build that relationship where you can talk to each other, and it's like, can you trust me? You know, like you brought me here for a reason, right? You brought me back for a reason. Like, and I remember working with one director, and he wanted me to do something in a really emotional. People often hire me to play big emotion, and I am often going, is there a way to make it smaller? I know I can do that. And I know that you know, if you want it, I can bring that. But is there a way, because I've sat through so many screenings where I did the thing that was asked. And then I go, oh God, why didn't I listen to my gut? It felt too big. It felt dishonest. And I did it because I was told, and like, that's part of our job, is to listen to a director and like bring their vision to life. But I've tried really hard over the years to figure out, what can I do to still answer what they're asking of me and give them what they want, but know that anything that I've put in the can is something that I'll be proud of at the end. And it doesn't always happen, but like that's something that I'm mindful of, like, because you don't want to be watching yourself and you don't want to be conscious of, like, but you do want to feel like I'm honest and I trust. And like, and I remember working with this one director, we'd worked together a couple of times, and every take he's like, just be, it's big, it's emotion. It was someone who was kind of sort of going through a mental, struggling with a mental disorder. And he wanted something in this one case that he had experienced. And I was like, okay, but there's no transition. And yes, there are things where you just have a manic moment or whatever, but the thing that you're literally, as a human, asking me to have this thing that feels almost impossible, and it feels really false. And he's like, just do it. I'm like, oh, okay. And when we got back to editing later, he's like, I should have listened, like, you were right. And we worked together again, and we were doing something in one take. And there's no edit, you can't take them. You can't say, okay, well, give me one take, start to finish. The entire film was one take. And another time, that was another time where he was like, actually, that was the first one where he was like, I just do what I ask. And we worked together again. He's like, okay, I'm going to listen to you the next time,
Yeah.
You build rapport,
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I love, is working with people I've worked with before, because it gives you, I want to like to, and people do it, obviously, you walk onto a set and you don't know any of the actors. You've done some rehearsals, you've talked to them, maybe you've seen them in other projects, or, if you're a super duper big famous director, everyone knows each other's work, and they, do all that stuff, but you don't know the person necessarily. And that's always the big thing, is like, when you cast, you're not just casting talent, you're also casting the person. Because you don't want any drama. There's no time, there's no time for it. Drama usually equates to money, and time. But there's such a balance, and that's really the director's job, is to bring in the right actors, get a sense of who the people are, I think, and then trust them when they come up to you, even if you think it's a horrible idea, just trust them, because you don't know how it's going to start. And you'll see this too, as you write your script and you get it made, and you will, and then you're starting to look at your takes and stuff, and you're going to see how certain it just starts to take on a life of its own. And you're like, wow, I wrote a script and then I filmed it, and now I'm putting it together. All three of them are kind of different. Each one is unique. So
that's interesting. So do you feel, because you've written most of the projects that you've produced?
I'm trying to think. I probably half and half at this point, I would say.
Part of the writing process, right? Like, because sometimes you have other writers, but I feel like you've got your hands in it. Well, I guess my question was, like, when you do write your own script, like, that's the thing, right? Like, how much of it is, I wrote the script and then I'm going to take it to set and I'm going to let it be its own thing on set, right? Like, I think there are people that come and set, and they shoot by the page, and then there's some people that come to set and they realize, oh, this doesn't really work, or this has to this, or let's improv this, or whatever. Like, do you feel like you usually shoot what's on the page, or are you malleable on set?
I like to get the page, but then I like to be very malleable, and I also like improv. So there's that scene in Clandestine between Janine, my Janine, and Tom Sizemore, and that's, some of it's the script and a lot of it's improv. So we just let them go. I wanted to see what they were going to do together in the room, and you miss a lot if you, like, look at Ghostbusters, right? One of the funniest movies of all time. They had a script and then they had the movie, and they said that the improv was just like through the roof. What these guys would just start doing. And how they would improv every scene they would just take what was written and just build on it. And I kind of feel that's what a script is a lot of times, because other people's creative energy are going to come in and they're going to start seeing things based on their own life experience, things that they've gone through. Why would you want to take that out? Otherwise, it's all just your experience in life. As long as someone isn't coming to you and saying, like, I think, you know, you're writing a story about an old man passing away, and suddenly they have an alien invasion, or, you know,
in that movie.
all right, the lizard people are invading, or it's like, you know, it's got to be. It's got to be within the realm of reality that you're trying to create with your film. So, but yeah, it is, you know, it's an interesting process. And, I think there's people that enjoy this. There's people who suffer through it. And then there's people that just don't get it. And they're obviously not the ones that do it or stay in it that long. I mean, the amount of people, I mean, I think you said you've been doing this 20, how many years?
24 years now, I guess I have to admit.
Okay. Yeah.
24.
So that's roughly about the amount of time I've been doing it. And a lot of people don't do it anymore that we met and we knew in class, you know, that we knew along the way, that we bumped into. Sometimes I'll remember someone's name will pop in my head and I'll go on IMDb. They're not doing anything anymore.
But don't you think it's like it's two things, right? Like there are some people that just decided this struggle is not for me. I want to. I know really, really talented actors that I often go, I wonder, you know.
Mm-hmm.
and then I know people that just couldn't take the rejection and the struggle and in that regard, you know. And then a lot of people during the pandemic were just like, I can't do it anymore. I physically, mentally, whatever, can't do it anymore. And I think it's interesting. I remember my mother saying something to me a long time ago. It's not failure if you've given it your all and you choose a different path. You've just chosen a different path. You know, you haven't failed at the thing. It's a hard life to live. You know, it's a hard, you know, even as we get older, I was just having this conversation with someone where when you were younger, you know, you didn't mind if you had 6 jobs and you were juggling them all, and you know, you've had a different existence. So I think you've had like a steady job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have gone in and out of that. You know, when I had my daughter, I sort of made a commitment to myself, and I was lucky I was in a position to do it. That I was the primary stay-at-home parent, and I wasn't going to really leave her unless it was something worth leaving her for.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, obviously her dad, you know, has a different, more stable career. And so, but then, you know, as that changes, as you get older, and that's my home life has changed now. And it's like, you're at a certain age and you're like, I still have 7 jobs. And even, you know, even when you feel like you've gotten to a certain level of success where you are being on shows and this like that, it's not, you know, unless you get on a series regular or something like that, you're still piecemealing like even creative jobs together. Like all the jobs I have right now are all creative, but they have like 7 of them. You know, I'm like an audiobook creator. I'm a corporate trainer as an avatar. You know, I teach a scene study. I coach actors. You know, everything is creative in some way, and that's what's important to me, that it's related to the craft, but it's still a juggle. And then you look at it and you go, as you get older, you're like, where is the stability for myself, for my family? What do you do? You know, it's just a different kind of experience. Like you start to go, how do I still go after the dream and never give it up and keep dedicating my life to it, and then also be a responsible, practical human?
Yeah. It's tough. It's a very, very, very difficult. It's something that I don't think most people, unless you're doing it, really understand that. That is such a hard, it's a burden. Now, granted, it's a choice we're making that we want to do this. But sometimes, you know, I can't tell you how many times I've quit.
Really?
Yeah, I quit. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. Forget about it. And then the next day I'm back on the phone calling somebody, working on something, going back, writing another script or whatever, or coming up with a new idea. Because it's like a drum that's always beating in you. It's difficult. I just can't walk away. So I've given up on walking away. I just won't quit. The thing is that I also though realize, like, I need, as you realize you continue to get older, you know, it's like, you're like, wow, I have gray in my beard now. When did that happen? You know? No, I do. I mean, I have a good idea where I think I call it the Phoenix Gray. I think I got it from Phoenix Films, but um, it's like you, what?
I support that concept. Yeah.
Okay. And I think like, but you realize like, wow, I'm older. I'm not 26, 28, 34, 40. I'm old, I'm 45. You start moving up the ladder. And you say to yourself like, well, I need to have a good quality of life too. And I think a lot of us, I hope anyone who's watching this, who's young, a young actor, realizes you don't have to suffer to be a good actor.
Yes.
And you've probably seen this a lot. There's so many stories you hear about, I'm going to out some people right now, but like Sandra Bullock, Tom Cruise, that these people struggled and they were poor and they didn't. I dated a girl who knew Sandra Bullock, was best friends with her in high school. Sandra Bullock was not poor. Sandra Bullock's parents were paying for her to do everything she was doing in the city. And there's this thing and with Tom Cruise, there was this casting director I met at Actors Connection, one of those meet and greet things back in like, had to be the late 90s. And she said, and I really like this woman, I think she retired, but she was really nice. And she said, she was casting for soaps. And she just said, guys, go get a good job and have a good quality of life. Because if you're suffering, you can't be a good actor. Like you can bring that suffering into a role, but if you're so worked up about something you're suffering with. And she was like, there's all these stories, press PR people get a hold of these actors once they start to launch, and they create this legend about them, about how poor they were and how much they suffered. And she goes, Tom Cruise, there's all these stories about how poor he was. And she's like, he wasn't poor. She goes, he was growing up in Wayne. His house was down the street from my house. Everybody on that block were doctors. She goes, and my husband was making at that time like well over whatever the hell the number was, 600,000 a year or something, or a million or whatever. And I just feel like it's important for actors to, as they're getting into this, get something that makes you happy, that you're enjoying your life. That doesn't mean you're going to do it forever, but what do you find with all those students that you've taught? Do you see a lot of them like, I have to suffer, I got to wait tables, I got to like not be able to pay for healthcare? I mean, what's...
Well, I see more. I think the thing that I see the most right now that I really try to get them to understand is like, I want to be famous. I want to be an influencer. I want to be a social media star. I want to be this. I want to be that. And you're like, do you want to act? What like, have you ever picked up a script? That the desire to learn the craft and study it and train and some of them turn out to be really lovely actors when they sort of put that ego or whatever that goal is aside and realize that that's not, look at our world, right? Like you could have a lot more success if you were a successful influencer than you might as an actor that's not, even one that's working. So it's a hard path to sort of guide. I don't, it's really interesting because I think that we all grew up in the struggle through it kind of thing, but when we sort of came through too, there was a lot of jobs you could do to sort of sustain your craft. You could be a waiter, you could do catering, you could, data, temp, office work. I was a paralegal for years. And at least now that feels more challenging. I mean, post-pandemic, that feels a lot more challenging. I think a lot of the jobs that help people survive as a side job are really way more difficult now. And so I think that's another reason we lost so many actors, is that the balance of how you actually survive through has been altered and there isn't as much substance and support there. It's a challenging thing because I think, I'm not someone who ever discourages someone from pursuing their dreams ever, but I also am always sort of kind of like, well, how are you going to function and how are you going to survive? And I have this conversation with myself all the time, like, all right, Jeanine, what's the name, and I'm a very open, honest person. Like, as you get older, it's difficult, because you're like, I've worked my entire life. I've worked since I was like 10 or 11, it's like, and I always had 5 or 6 jobs, it's like, but then as you get older, you're right. You're like, everyone is people are starting to retire. People going on vacation all the time. And you're like, that would be nice. It'd be
Yeah.
nice to be able to enjoy life more. And so I find myself now really looking at things that are, again, still related to my craft. I have to be honest, like I still believe with my whole heart that I'm going to be a series regular on a show. I think, yeah, I mean, I do. I think it's in my path somewhere. I don't know. I have never given up. Not for a day. I've been here for 24 years and I have come home and cried my eyes out a lot.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I always thought, like, you come home, you kind of absorb. I had a teacher said, you have the subway ride home.
Yeah.
Have any emotion you want, and then you go home. And what I've always done is, like, the second I walk in the door, it's like, okay, I'm going to send out headshots now. I'm going to send off submissions or whatever, because
Yeah.
you don't let the thing defeat you. You just
Hmm.
keep moving forward. But now I find myself going, what are the other things I love? I'm a mental health advocate. I've been working in corporate training. I love helping people. I love being of service. How can I use the skills I have as a performer, but then also the things that I love as a human? How can I meld those two worlds and then make it a financially viable thing that,
Hmm.
sustains my life, but also gives me the ability to live a more joyous life. And that's kind of where this year's been for me coming out of the pandemic. It's like, I felt like right before it, my career was, certainly not stable, but like it was moving, it felt like I was like, oh, wow, I'm a working actor. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now it sort of feels like starting over again. And so you kind of reassess and go, I could never imagine not being an actor. I could never imagine, not having that as a part of my life in some way.
Yeah.
And still pursue it wholeheartedly, but at the same time, figuring out how to live a joyful life.
Hmm.
And
Do
I
you
think,
feel?
sorry, go ahead.
No, what were you going to say?
I was just say, I think that the more you try to find the ways to live a joyful life, it actually then comes so much back to the work that you're doing. Like, to me, the kind of work I want to create as a creator, as a writer, is to tell the stories that affect people, to tell the stories that give voice to people that are not seen or heard, and to try to educate or maybe show a different perspective on something that is hard. I find people are funny. You said it earlier, like, oh, you're like a bright light all the time. And then they read my stuff and they're like, wow, it's really dark. It's like, well, because life is that, like I love the thing that, people say, and even, in passing about set, like, no drama, no drama. Life is drama.
Mm.
It is drama, right? We're living through things. And so all the things that I do to enrich my life, to do other things that I love, only makes me a better actor, and makes me want to tell those stories, and I don't know, maybe make something that people don't understand a little bit more approachable, and have empathy for
Yeah.
others.
Do you feel, what I was going to ask you was where you started, you said there's, acting is your main thing, but there's other things like mental health you're concerned about, and, training and coaching people. Did that start after you had your daughter, or was that always kind of there?
I was teaching before I had Mac.
Yeah, I know.
Was I coaching before I had her? I don't know if I was coaching independently before. A little bit. I think a little bit. I'm such a different person as a mother. How can you not be, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, maybe the feeling of all of those things have always been important to me. Maybe the idea of helping others understand them and learn them and feel supported, that greater need. My daughter's 10, and without sharing too much of her personal stuff, like, you watch kids now go through social media and all the things, and life is and so I feel like as a mom, I am constantly learning. Like, she teaches me every single day, and so I'm just a much better teacher and a much better human because of her in every way. But it is. It's like, I was never a patient human. I don't know that it's still my strong suit. I'm getting much better at it. It is that thing of going, it's not, I don't have control over it anymore. When you have a child, you pass the control over and go,
Right.
especially when they're little, and so it's such a lesson. And in a way, as an artist, it's freeing too, because now you have something else that has your whole heart. It's interesting. I was coaching an actor the other day, and the character she was playing was an artist, and it was like, if I can't be an artist, like I just kill me, and we were trying to find the truth in this, and then that is actually the worst, no exaggeration. And I said, imagine put yourself in these circumstances. If you couldn't be an actor, if you couldn't be this, and I had to stop for a second, and I was like, well, I'm a mother, so I can't really go there in that way completely, because I always have something else, right, that I care with my whole heart. But it is interesting how it infuses all you do. When I had Mac, my ability to access my emotions changed completely. And I actually think that I wasn't very funny for a good chunk of time after I had her. Like, I couldn't find humor. Maybe it was just because I was tired. I'm not sure. I feel like I've got that back. I'm not sure. But again, I've tangented 10 times over. I'm not quite sure where it started. But yes, I use all of those things as a teacher and as a coach. And I do feel a greater responsibility, I think, as a mother. My students, I laugh because I'm always like, they're my kids, and they're like in their 30s, and 20s.
Yeah.
But we started that earlier. It's like, I get to watch people grow. I get to watch people do beautiful work, and like, if I get to have a part in them doing their best work, it's part of my journey too. Like, I root for my actors with everything I have. It's like, I was coaching someone the other day, and he was doing so well and so well. It's like, you're just waiting, and as soon as they get to the take, you're like, give them the best thing. And like, you're reading with them, so you don't want to be expressive or whatever, and you want to control it, whatever, but they're in the zone. You're like, don't let their kids or the dog or whatever, because they become, you get as excited for them to succeed as you do for yourself,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you get invested, you have an investment. I mean, that acting teacher I mentioned, Lawrence, who I consider like my mentor, he's going to be in the remake of Nicky Newark. I wrote a role specifically for him and called it his name. So, because
acting teacher.
Yeah, well, his acting, you remember the film, you're in it the first time. You have the goofy acting teacher, and then Bobby went and found that former skinhead acting teacher, and that's all gone. And instead he actually goes to a real acting teacher. And this person just helps him really kind of connect with stuff. And that's Lawrence. But Lawrence is someone who's always been invested for all these years. I've known him now for over 20 years. And, anytime, there'll be a long spat of time where we don't speak, but then they'll be like, hey, give him an update. And he's like, I'm always pulling for you guys and for you and, what you're trying to accomplish. And that's great, and it's great that you have that with your students. Not 20 years, you haven't known them for 20 years yet, but you already have those seeds.
And I still have students from the first year that I taught. It was TVI, it doesn't even exist anymore. And that's oh my God, a long time. I still have students from that class that call me every once in a while, and some of them are in the business still, some of them are not. They call me and they ask for advice. Every once in a while, they'll have like a really big audition, and I'm like, hey, can we coach? And so I still coach some of those people that I first taught years and years and years ago, and I love that. I love that when it comes down to a hard moment, and they're like, who can I trust? That they know they can trust me, and they trust me with their work. And I think part of being a coach too is, you're asking someone to hold your heart and all of your experiences. And I've had classes where people, they share so much. We had a class one time that people just told their stories. By the end, and to me, that's the safe space you create, right? Like that everyone there, once people share their stories, it's a different space. It's a different energy in the space. People bring a different kind of work in the space. People feel like they can open their hearts in the scenes because they've already shared their hurt. And there are kids and there are students that had never said those words out loud. And I don't know why, but they trusted that. They trusted me to hold that space for them. And that is an honor. And I get to watch them work. And the beauty in that is then when they come to class, I can say, can I bring up the thing that you talked about and say, this is a moment where that might be useful, or this might be that, or remember that thing you shared, maybe connect into that here. And it's a trust, right? Like, and you learn, some people are like in a journey, and they're walls, they're just walls. And you see it, and then you step outside with them, and you're like, and someone did this for me. I remember Bob Krakauer saying to me, you don't breathe. You, and I never breathe breath. He's like, you're afraid of all the stuff that you've felt and dealt with. That's so much emotion that if you ever let it up, it's going to overwhelm you. It's like, if you start to, it'll probably overwhelm you, and then I can teach you how to use it. And I still, like that moment in the hall, I remember so clearly, because it really changed my path, you know. And I try that with the actors I teach, to go, what do they need as a human? Sometimes, what do they need? I had a student the other day that was in a scene, and it was a trauma that was way too much to experience, and we stepped outside and we talked about it, and then I had to share with her privately, this is not something you can experience yet as an actor. You're not here enough to work on this. You have to do the work. And maybe processing through the scene and doing a reflection on it and journaling about the scene will bring out some of the things that you really need to still address. But that's the self-healing, because, you know, as actors, we are our instruments. So everything that we're combating, I remember someone years ago said something like, the things you're battling in therapy are the things you're going to battle in stage on a script or whatever, because we're a human being, you know. And then sharing that with the class, like, you know, you can't use all of your past. You're not ready to use all of your past yet. There are things that are accessible, and there's things that are not, and that's okay. I remember an actor years ago, beautiful actress, beautiful. I mean, she's beautiful, but beautiful work. And I remember saying to her, because we had to do these crying scenes on stage, I was like, how do you just cry that easily every night? I was, you know, young and didn't have as ease with my emotions. And I was like, you know, what do you think your past is? She's like, I'm not going to use my family. I don't want to think bad things about my family. And I thought it was such an interesting response, that like, for her family and her personal life was sacred. And that was not something that she was going to access or substitute or whatever. Her journey was, I'm going to be in the moment, and, you know, if I have to do a substitution or an as it, but this is the moment I'm in, I'm going to live through it. And that taught me a lot too. It's like, I don't have to rely on things that are going to bring up hurt and pain from my life. I can, it's a tool, but I can also just process what it would be like to be this person, and maybe experience it as them, and not have to trigger the things that I can't use yet. You know, there's different ways into things, you know?
So what did that actress use? So her family and stuff was sacred, so she just found other things.
I think that she was very much like a given circumstances kind of actor, and sort of, she could drop in. She also, you know, if you think about it, there are just some people that have easier access to emotions, and so it's not as hard to bring them up, you know?
Yeah.
And she may not have realized, looking back now, because I'm much older than I was, that she may not have been using her family like, oh, I'm thinking about my real mother dying, because that was, or my real daughter in the play we did. But it might have been something from her past that triggered that pain. She just wasn't assigning it to a person, so she didn't have to think about that. And I realized that a lot as being a mom. Like, I don't want to think about bad things around my daughter. There are times when I'm playing a role that's a mother or whatever that you can't help but not. I was teaching 2 nights ago, and it was a scene where a social worker was coming into someone's house, and they're like, are you there to take my kid? You know, and at the end of the scene, the last line was basically saying, like, if you're really being honest with yourself, you really can't take care of this kid anymore, and they're probably going to be better off. And I was talking to the class, and I couldn't even say the words out loud. It's like, to know as a mother that, like, you may not be the best person to care for your child, and that maybe you're incapable of it, no matter how hard you try. You know, it's like, so I can't dissociate myself from being a mother. That's a part of the fabric of who I am. But it doesn't mean I have to imagine Mackenzie going through the thing that's, you know,
Right.
you know. But I think that's the interesting part. And as a teacher now, I get to watch and learn from, I learn so much from my students, because you watch what works, you watch what doesn't, you watch, how people get in, and some, I've watched actors go outside in, I watch actors go inside out, you know, like you talk about experience and things like that, like, and it's fascinating. There's so many different ways to get to something. One of the things that I think has been so helpful as an actor that has now sat on the other side of the table is you watch the same actors, you know, when you audition, do the same scenes over and over and over again, and you realize, and we know now, right? Like one person can get the role.
Hmm.
There's definitely more than one good actor in this, you know, and you get to watch and go, well, there's just different versions of it. So you lose that sense that I'm not the best, or I, you know, I lost the role, or this or the other. It's like, no, there was a different version that that director or producer was trying to tell, or
Hmm.
writer. And that's just what spoke to them. But that doesn't mean, and I have kids, students do the same scene so they can see that, because that was so eye-opening for me. It really took that feeling for me away of the best person gets the part, or you know,
Hmm.
really helped me visualize it better, because you would watch and go, well, they were all great versions of the scene. You know, maybe that
Yeah.
person didn't really understand the story, maybe that one wasn't clear, maybe that one missed something, but the ones that really understood it, there's still very different versions of it. And then the person casting has to go, which story am I telling?
Yeah.
And that frees you up as an actor, because you go, you know what? And I think that that's when, and this is something I learned from Bill Macy. He was a mentor of a friend of mine years ago. And he said, when I started working was when I just started going and giving him, I gave him me. I gave him my version, and I stopped trying to figure out what their version was and what they wanted and all the things. I gave them my version, and I left it, and I walked out the door. And
Yeah.
whenever I do that in an audition, whenever I go, this is my version, I don't always get the role. I get the role way more when I do that, but I don't always get it. But I always leave going, I feel like I got to do it. You
Yeah.
know, I got to share my version of what it of what that is to me.
Well, I think, what's great about you teaching and then also still being, a current actress, someone who's still acting, is you get to continue to feed your students and just the people you come into contact with that experience and that information. And honestly, we could keep talking for like another hour and a half, but
Oh my God.
I'll have you come back for a part two. But I want to thank you for coming on. It was awesome. You brought in tons and tons of interesting information, and it was a pleasure to talk to you. And I love talking to people that I've known for so long and that I've worked with. So, so thank you.
Our history started rolling on the floor in class. That's what I remember.
So, but no, I appreciate you coming on. It was awesome. All right. All right. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.